have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Hello, happy Monday. Thank you so much for listening to the Bold Moves podcast. I am the host, Mandy Bryce, and this is episode number 317. Today I am sharing an interview that I did with Kelly Pantaleoni about the incredible adventures that she's been on and the way that she's expanded her comfort zone through travel and through moving to a new continent and through philanthropy for many different causes. I absolutely can't wait to share her story, so I'm going to let her tell it. Without further ado, here is Kelly Pantaleoni. Hello, everyone. Today I am chatting with Kelly Pantaleoni. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have
LA,
you.
so this is like exciting to be back into exciting projects right away.
Fantastic. So you say back to LA. Where are you coming from?
All over, really. I just got back from 2 months in Africa. I was doing a philanthropy project in Uganda. And before that, I was living 2 years in Vancouver, in Canada.
Fantastic. So you know that the show is called Bold Moves, and we wouldn't be chatting if you hadn't made some. I would love to hear more about you and your story and some of the risks that you've taken along the way. And then, of course, what brought you to Africa, because that sounds like a bold move in itself.
Oh, my God. That was the boldest move. Yeah. There's definitely some, danger and risk mixed in there. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, definitely lots of bold moves. I guess I would trace it back to even moving to California from the small town that I grew up in Australia. I grew up on a farm. So it was an hour outside of town, like no cell service, an hour bus ride to school, an hour bus ride home. And that really got my imagination going because I would read books and just stare out the window and just think about the life that I wanted to live and dream of LA one day, which was so far from my reality growing up on a farm in the middle of like outback Australia, basically. But it was always the dream to move to California. And so I did it when I was 18. And that was, I moved over. My father lives in California, so I was raised with my mother in Australia, and my dad lives in Northern California near San Francisco in a town called Gilroy.
Okay, I know Gilroy.
Yeah.
Lots of garlic.
Lots of garlic, the Garlic Festival. And sadly, they had a tragedy there at the festival last year, a shooting that my sister was actually involved in. So it's a crazy world that we live in these days. But yeah, so I moved to live with him just to spend some time with my family that I didn't grow up with because I have a little brother and sister there. And then I finally made the move down to LA when I was 19, about to be 20. And I didn't really know many people. I just knew just a handful of friends, but it was always the dream. So I made the move and then just got into modeling and acting. I actually moved down when I was in the Miss California pageant. I was working in a gym in Gilroy at Gold's Gym, and somebody said, "Oh, you should try modeling." I was like, me, like farm girl, me. I don't even know how to do my own hair and makeup. And I was just bored at work one day, and they said, "You should apply for the Miss California pageant." So I did it. I applied, and I actually got in. I don't know how. And so I had like 2 months to prepare. So they started to have rehearsals and training down in Palm Springs. So that's what kind of started to bring me down to Southern California.
Sure.
And then I did the pageant, and I kind of learned a lot about the business side of modeling because I wasn't a pageant girl, but I wanted to get into modeling, and it really taught me a lot. And I was working at a Guess store at the same time, and it was my favorite brand, and I actually approached them to be my sponsor in the pageant, and they did. And so they started to fly me down to LA, and I went to the Guess headquarters, and they designed me a gown, and it was a lot of fun. So I learned about well, this is henna, by the way. I just got some henna at a party, not tats, although I kind of wish it was because I like it. So yeah, I made the move down, and through the Miss California pageant and through Guess, I started to get more and more into modeling. And then I really, the focus was always acting. And so through modeling, I transitioned into acting. But it was a scary move to go from the farm to big life in California. It's like what we all watch in the movies. Everyone around tunes in to America, especially California. So there was that, and then I lived in California. I lived in LA for 6 years, and then something happened with losing a friend, and it really kicked me off into this. First of all, it was a depression, and then it was a soul searching journey, because I just had to go find out more. And that's when I really started to get into a lot of very beautiful spiritual books, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. And I went backpacking. I just booked a one-way ticket to Cambodia, and I kind of picked up the torch from where my friend Lindsay, who passed, left it with her nonprofit called Give Backpackers. So I just booked a one-way ticket to Cambodia with a couple of other friends of Lindsay's, and we went and did a project there where we helped. We were working with a nonprofit called Build Your Future Today, and we were volunteering at the schools. We brought donations, and they build wells in the schools and roads to connect the villages. And then after that, I just wanted to go explore and learn more about the world and myself. And I went to Thailand and Myanmar, India, Nepal, and Singapore, and then back to Thailand. And I was traveling for the most part solo, and it was a bold move, but it was also just very divinely guided. I felt really protected the whole time, even though everyone's like, oh, traveling by yourself, scary. But it was just so much fun. I never really felt that scared or anything. And then fast forward 2 years after that, it led to this Africa project, and I've always wanted to go to Africa. It's always been a huge dream of mine. And I was working with Lindsay with a sustainable sewing program in Tijuana, in Mexico, and it never got to come to fruition before she passed. So when this woman, and her name is Angel, which I feel like is straight from above, and I'm not even, but I listen to the signs, like when an angel is reaching out to you. The prophet is called Destiny Wings. You listen. So she reached out to me just on Facebook, and that's actually how I was connected with Lindsay too. So as much as I have a love-hate relationship with social media, it has led to a lot of good things, like me and you. Like
exactly, yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, so Angel reached out through that, and it took some time, probably over a year, before we really established like this program, because when somebody from another country reaches out to you and you have no connection, like no way of knowing how you were connected, how she found you, it's really surprising. And so I did my research, and I found out like she was very legitimate. She was so organized. She was so on top of it. Like she could be president one day. She's such a powerhouse. And then so we decided to do the sustainable sewing program. So I brought 2 friends from California and videographers from Vancouver, and we shot a documentary while we were there all about Angel and her story, because she's just a phenomenal human being. She comes from a family of 12 kids, 4 mothers, because polygamy is it's slowly being outdated, thankfully, but for a long time having multiple wives was very normal. So she had 4 mothers, 12 siblings under one roof.
Wow.
She was the only one who got educated and started a nonprofit. And so we went over and we flew into Entebbe in Uganda, and her village that she's working from is about an hour and a half out of Kampala, which is the capital of Uganda. And so we would travel to the village every day. We shot a documentary. We helped buy a plot of land so they could build a community center. We bought 14 sewing machines so the women can learn a valuable skill, as well as start their own small businesses, because we wanted to initiate a sustainable program, not just, put a Band-Aid on the problem and be like, temporary solution, like here's some money, good luck. We wanted to create an opportunity for them to make their own business and money and help generations to come. And after that was about 2 weeks. And then after that, I decided to travel, to continue traveling and explore Uganda, and met people and traveled and adopted a cat and a bunny that I rescued in the same day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was also, a lot of that was just me following my heart and making these moves based on my intuition. Because, and I've come back and a lot of people are like, you're brave, like traveling around Africa by yourself. And yeah, there's some crazy stories, but overall it was a really good experience and it was a success.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm curious with all of those because, I mean, there's just so many, and I have yet to meet someone who's been a guest on my show who has one bold move and then plays it safe the rest of the time. But usually,
Try it one time.
usually it's a habitual thing or a personality trait where they're doing brave things pretty frequently. But of all of those different things, or maybe even something you haven't mentioned, moving to a new continent, moving to LA from even somewhere else in California or the United States could be scary. So there's just so many there. But I'm curious what the scariest thing you've ever experienced has been.
Wow. I mean, jumping out of an airplane was pretty scary.
See that?
Yeah, I guess I have, growing up on a farm, I do have, I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so I do like taking risks and bold moves and riding motorbikes and, skydiving and stuff like that. But the scariest, I don't know. I think you would think that traveling solo would be a scary move, but I've always just had faith that I'm being protected, whether it's, your angels or spirit guides or whatever they are, whoever's watching over us. I've always felt pretty guided. But maybe LA was actually quite scary because it's a fun city and it's a city of opportunity, but it's also a city of where people could take advantage of you a lot.
Absolutely.
And moving here, I was lucky that I did have a really good network of friends around me, but there were situations, and I've heard of so many stories, and now we know with all the Me Too movement of how close you are always to danger as far as putting yourself in dangerous situations that, I try to keep myself busy with meetings and opportunities, and there were many times where I probably made a bold move that may have been too bold, that I put off an aura where it's like, don't mess with me. So I think nothing bad has ever happened, but I think put myself in situations where it could have been potentially scary or dangerous.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people that are ready to take advantage of you in this city.
Right, where you leave something and you're like, I probably should have done that a little bit differently and more intelligently because that could have been really bad. And thank goodness it wasn't. Definitely been there.
I'm really, I'm very grateful that nothing scary or dangerous has happened to me here, but it happens all the time. And now we know the Me Too movement of how many girls have tried to make bold moves. Like, yes, I'm going to go meet with this big director or this big producer, and I'm going to get this role, and then they get there and it's like, oh, that's what it is. Got it. So yeah, I've been fortunate not to be taken advantage of in that sense, but who knows how close I was to it,
Right, absolutely. So in these moments, it seems like some of the things just aren't scary to you naturally, like things that other people would consider brave. You're just like, no, this is comfortable for me. And it could be you're being in touch with your intuition or whatever it is. But I'm curious, when something does feel a little bit scary, how you push past that fear and do whatever it is anyway.
Yeah, I think my upbringing has led to that. So I've never really, fear never really gets in the way. But the thing that does scare me a lot is that when I'm heading into an audition and I have those butterflies and I have nerves coming in, I try and transform that energy from it being a scary thing and it being like the nerves that could take over to lead to a bad situation. I try and transform them into it's excited butterflies. Yeah. So instead of letting the fear take over, I transmute it into, oh no, this is exciting. This is not scary. This is exciting. And then I try and ride that wave instead. But it's easier said.
Yeah, I think physiologically our bodies are doing the same thing. It's just the mental process of how are you defining those physical sensations from that fear or that excitement. And I think shifting that is a great tool to use. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think it could be really beneficial for a lot of people in situations where they're getting nervous, whether it's like an interview or a meeting or catching up with somebody they haven't seen in a while and they're nervous. It's changing that like body science into, oh, I'm scared, into, no, I'm excited. Like, and it's just a little life hack. It's just like a little brain tweak that we can make.
Right.
And yeah, I've gained a lot of knowledge too from podcasts and books and interviews, and that's where I get a lot of this from. Like, that's not something I've come up with on my own.
I think we're all pretty much the combination of like the best, or at least we try to be the best things that we learn from other people, whether that's in person or books or podcasts. So that's cool that you're giving credit to it. But yeah, I think that's true for everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge out there in this day and
Absolutely.
age of technology.
Yeah. So I'm curious, it seems like you're doing quite a wide variety of things with the modeling and acting, with the philanthropy work. I'm wondering if in this exploration too, with your solo traveling, when you're kind of learning about, you said, I think, the world and yourself, I'm wondering if you spent any time thinking about your purpose and what you've come up with. Because I know that can be a dynamic thing. And for some, it's a really specific purpose. For others, it's something that's really broad that you can kind of be doing in every moment. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's always good for us to remind ourselves of this too. Because when you think about it, your life purpose, that's a big thing, but most people don't think about it on a day-to-day. Like, it's not really what guides them, when really it should be the only thing guiding us. But it has changed a little bit. So for a long time, I've played around with different causes, because it's always my purpose in life is not to serve myself, it's to serve others. I realized that at a young age when it's just in the depression, I think teenage angst, and I decided, like, I'm not here for me. This is not, like, I've already given up on that. Like, I'm here to serve others and to help people and the planet. And I'm doing it through my art. And that's my chosen art was acting and filmmaking. So that's my channel that I've chosen to help people through, whether it's inspiring them or, so yeah, as a teenager, I think that's when I realized that I am not here for myself. I feel like I really am here to help people and the planet. And the causes have changed throughout the years. I've done some research into sex trafficking. I was working with a nonprofit here, and it was really hard to hear the stories of these women, and slavery is still such a big issue, whether it's sex trafficking, human trafficking, child slavery. There's still a lot that goes on. So I do want to work with that, but I feel, and I actually made this deal when I was in Africa, because the cat that I had rescued went missing one day. It's a huge story, but anyway, the cat jumped out of the van that I was in when we stopped, and we had to go back up the mountain and in the middle of the night and find this cat. And I made a deal with the universe that I am going to help all the animals on the planet that I can, like, as much as possible. My purpose here is to help animals, because they don't have a voice. They can't speak for themselves, and they're so innocent and they're so pure. And they've done nothing to hurt us. They don't, they're just minding their own business, and we are so destructive to their environments. And what's happening in Australia right now just breaks my heart whenever I see these videos. So I really feel that my purpose here is to help animals, whether it's through raising awareness of being more plant-based, which is interesting for me, because I grew up on a sheep farm where we ate a lamb roast every Sunday, and that was a family tradition. And when I go back, my mom has a farm. She has a farm-to-table restaurant, and I feel like that's different. When you're raising your own animals, they're happy, they've got land, they're killed humanely and quickly. It's a little different, but going home, and my brother was a butcher. So it's such an interesting thing for me to now be more plant-based, because I am making a conscious choice despite my upbringing. Because a lot of people like to use that excuse, oh, I'm this ethnicity and we are all about our meat. And so was I. Like, I grew up on a meat farm. So I know how hard it is, but at this day and age, like, we really need to be thinking about everything that we consume, all the food we're consuming, the chemicals we're consuming, the toxins in our environment, even what we're buying, plastic products.
Sure.
We vote with our dollar, so we need to be really thinking about that. So if I can raise awareness to that, and then, protecting animal species from extinction, from deforestation, and that comes back to what we're consuming, what we're buying, and human causes. So female empowerment is really big for me. I think, and it is actually a fact, when you're giving money or you're giving resources to vulnerable communities, it's always the women that will make the most of that money. And I saw that, and that is a fact. Like it's a stat that people know, because women give back to their communities and they're taking care of their families and the kids. So I really want to help build up the confidence in women in places like Magogo Village, where I was. These women are very, very strong, powerful women, but for a very long time they've been disempowered by thinking that, and this is, all of us, I feel we're all guilty of this. We feel like we need to rely on men or a lot of other resources outside of ourselves when we really are so strong. But giving them a hand, whether it's buying sewing machines or buying some land, so they can start their own businesses, is really important to me. So empowering women and helping save the animals of the planet is really important for me now. And I've chosen my path of acting and filmmaking to be my art or my vessel, where I can communicate this and raise awareness to this. And it's my channel to hopefully inspire people and open their eyes to a world that they didn't know existed. Because even going to Africa, I'd only seen movies and shows and listened to music about it, but you don't really know anything about the culture.
Sure.
Not like everyone, because the whole world is looking at America. Everyone knows about America, but America doesn't really know that much about everyone else, because we are only getting tiny tidbits of media and information and news, and the news is always tragic and sad. So it's really good for people to travel and see it for themselves, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned this nonprofit that your friend started that you kind of continued with. What can you tell us more about what that is and what you all do?
Yeah, so Give Backpackers is the brainchild from Lindsay Marie Hawley, my best friend forever. She passed away in 2017. Wow. Yeah, it's 3 years. Wow. So she passed away, and she had started Give Backpackers with the intent of traveling with purpose. So not being a tourist and not just, going to party in a place and leaving it worse off than when you found it. It's traveling with a conscious and having an intent behind everything that you're doing. So you don't always have to have, necessarily a big sustainable sewing program like we had, but it's just giving back while you backpack. So she traveled to Mexico a lot, and different places in South America. She also went to India and Southeast Asia. And everywhere she went, she was always doing some sort of giving back program, whether it was volunteering, whether it was purchasing jewelry or fabrics from women and selling it and giving proceeds back to them. She always had some sort of philanthropy project going in her travels. So her vision was to build a network of people that could come together from all over the world and say, we want to go to Uganda and we want to work with women in a village. What should we do? Oh, here's a project. And it's funny because Lindsay started the sustainable sewing program idea, but Angel actually already had it packaged together and ready to go. She just needed the funds. So Angel was like so aligned with Lindsay's vision as well, that when you meet people like her, the local people that already have their own organization, that is like a gold mine, because they've already got the foundation set. They just need support. So the idea is at home you raise money. So we did a GoFundMe. We raised over $10,000 in like 2 weeks.
Amazing.
I don't know how we did it, because I was making a movie right before. I wrote a movie last year about mental health. That's a whole nother topic we could talk about. And so I shot the movie in Vancouver in Canada. I moved 2 days later back to California, and then I had to do the whole fundraiser and everything. So it's really like really
a whirlwind sounds like.
It was. I don't know how he pulled it off. That was also just a miracle how it occurred. We just had some really generous donors come through at the last minute, saving grace. So yeah, we did a GoFundMe, and we did the same 2 years prior when we did the Cambodia project. We just do a GoFundMe. We shoot a video. We post it online. Lindsay she was such an inspiring person. She had a huge network of people who really looked up to her. So they still are following the backpackers and have been very generous and supportive. So we do the GoFundMe, we raise money, and then we go to the country, and we not only help initiate whatever program they're starting or what they want to do with the money, but we also volunteer. We take photos, we do videos. This year we did a documentary, so all the donors can see exactly where their money's going. Because that's another thing. The aid system, just sending money to all these countries, doesn't work. It's broken. That system is broken. And I read a book before I went called Dead Aid by Dembisa Moyo, and that's one of the books that I would recommend people read. It's just so shocking to know that $60 trillion has been sent to Africa, and like, where has it gone? It's really not helping the bigger problem, which is creating a foundation of sustainability where they can be. It's not just throwing money, it doesn't help. And when you've got all of these nonprofits that just give money, it just makes you wonder, is it really helping in the long run? And even these volunteer programs, because I met a lot of volunteers while I was traveling, and they said, like, you know, it feels nice to be able to come here and volunteer, but I do wonder, like, am I actually making a difference, or am I adding to the problem? Because you can't just solve a problem by throwing money at it or just by giving a little bit of time. It really has to be building these foundations. And that was her vision, is creating these sustainable projects wherever you go. And it really doesn't take a lot. Like 10,000 is quite a lot of money, and it will have a huge impact there. But you could just raise a few $100s and travel somewhere and make a huge difference. We did a fundraiser last year. So Lindsay Hawley would throw Halloween every year on Halloween. And it was her like favorite holiday of the year. So it was big Halloween, like, costume party, and it was always a fundraiser benefiting whatever cause she was raising awareness to. And last year, the year prior, it was for Peruvian Hearts in Cusco, and we raised enough money to put 3 girls through college there. But I think to put one girl through college, it was like $3,000 for the year. So you can make a huge difference just by doing your own GoFundMe. And you can come on board with Give Backpackers. You could do your own project, or you can get on board with one of ours. Lindsay's big vision was for it to be something that people all around the world, like, would build a site where people can meet each other and have, a chat or a forum. And, I've always wanted to go to this country. How can we help out while we're there? And people do their own projects and start their own little Give Backpacker trips all around the world.
That's a really cool idea. I hope that it escalates and grows to that eventually, because that's really cool idea. So you gave one book recommendation. I'm curious what other books you would recommend for people who might be interested.
There's so many. I love books. Like what I was saying before, I had an hour bus ride to school in the morning, an hour bus ride home. Like, I had a lot of time to read books when I was a kid. Now, back then it was like, the Harry Potters and the series, like the fantasy series. I was really into. I think that's what got my imagination going. And now it's more like the self-care and the books that just open your eyes up to what you're capable of as a human. And I really, really liked Autobiography of a Yogi.
Okay.
That's about Paramahansa Yogananda, and he brought yoga to the West. Okay. And it's just a really eye-opening book to show you what we're capable of as humans, because yogis, like the real yogis in India, who are like levitating and like time traveling, and like we are capable of so much once we tap into that power. And yoga to people here now is just the physical manifestation of it, but it is so much more about like mind, body, and spirit. And then plus reading that and having been to those cities in India that they're talking about was a really beautiful experience. So I would recommend that. There's also a really great book. I like to bounce between the very spiritual books and then more like logical, maybe business-minded books, like The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss.
Sure.
Is game-changing. Because a lot of people are just getting stuck in the hamster wheel and feeling that we have to just work, go home, drink, watch some TV, and then go back to work. Like,
right.
It shouldn't be that way. There's so much more to life. So he's really good. He has the 4-Hour Body as well. So it's just life hacks and body hacks.
Right.
And then another really good one is a book called Proof of Heaven. And I talk about angels and heaven a lot, even though I'm not necessarily religious. I am very open-minded to all of that. And it's written by a neurosurgeon who comes from a very, like, obviously a neurosurgeon, like, you're a brain scientist, like, you're not, you know, airy-fairy, like, what?
Sure.
Yeah. But he had he was in a coma. He had a brain parasite or something, put him in a coma for 3 months. And in that time, he saw the other side. Like, he went to the other side. He essentially died and had one of those, you know, near-death experiences where you go to the other side and you see what's happening and where everyone goes when we're done. And he came back to tell the tale because he was brought out of the coma. And so it really opened my eyes to, I think, knowing that you're going to die and being okay with that, live more. Yeah. And when you've had loss and you've had really close people to you die, it also opens your eyes up to that. But just being okay with death and knowing what's on the other side makes you, like, really, I think, push it to the limit here, because then you're not afraid anymore. Right. Maybe that's one of the few reasons I do make these bold moves, because I'm like, you know, I know what's on the other side and it's fine. Like, I'm not scared of it. Yeah. It's great. So, yeah. And then, but it also, he talks a lot about it, and so do some other books, and like The Convoluted Universe is another great one that explores past lives and other dimensions and some alien stuff, if you're into that. Interesting. Yeah. But all of those really remind you that when you do pass on to the other side, you have to kind of face everything that you go through in this life, every relationship you had, interactions you had that weren't so nice. You kind of have to review them. It's like your life review. So then it makes you really think about, okay, I got to be a good person.
I don't want that to be a bad experience.
Because I'm going to have to face everything that I've done at the end. And if you didn't learn the lessons, you might have to come back. So understanding the end helps you live more, I think.
Interesting. That's a really cool perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have other book recommendations, or is that the end of your list?
Oh my God, so many books. You tell I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm losing my voice. I get really excited about books, man. I'm reading a book right now called Emotional Intelligence that a lot of people should read. It's really good because it says why emotional intelligence is more important than IQ. Because understanding each other and the way that we interact and the way that we need to be communicated with is so important. I think we're forgetting that in this day and age because we're all communicating so digitally. Right. We're forgetting how to really talk heart to heart to one another and to understand our emotions. A lot of people are not dealing with their emotions in the right way. I chose to be sober. I don't drink alcohol. I'm 1 year sober from my birthday, which is a couple days ago.
Congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah. Alcohol just wasn't serving me. It wasn't making me feel good. It was making my emotions just be so much more amplified in a negative way. So understanding your emotions and how to deal with them is so important, because we often think that, oh no, we should just suppress it. Like emotions are bad these days, but they're not. Like, we should be really listening to them. And I think when we're not listening to them, that's when we get all of these, mass shootings, because these people are just angry or they're sad or they're upset. They don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
And I think they should be teaching emotional intelligence in schools and how to deal with your anger, because like what happened with my sister in the the Gaelic Festival shootings, that kid, it was a 19-year-old boy who, when somebody yelled out to him, "Why are you doing this?" he just said, "Because I'm angry." He was just an angry boy and he didn't know how to deal with it. Go take a boxing class, like go running, write, paint, like whatever you need to do to let that energy out is so important, and a lot of people aren't really dealing with that. So I think that is a very strong book for people that just want to understand emotions better. The Untethered Soul is a beautiful book. I read that actually while I was backpacking Southeast Asia. A medium friend of mine, like a psychic friend who let me communicate with Lindsay from the other side, said that Lindsay told me to read that book. So I actually have some book recommendations from the other side that were given to me. So The Untethered Soul is beautiful, and it's just about letting go. I have in the past, and I'm really working on that, a problem with attachment to attachment to stories, feelings, people, emotions, and just learning to let it go, but to address it, to face it first. Otherwise it will be, the author talks about it being a thorn in your side, and if you don't deal with the thorn, it will get infected and it will get worse. You have to deal with the thorn when you have a painful situation. You have to get it out first to heal. So it's facing your issues and then the healing.
That sounds really smart, for sure.
And there's another book. Yeah, there's another book that a friend gave me while I was traveling too, actually, in Africa. One was called Illusions. And that was a beautiful book in, I guess like the illusion that we all live in. And some people might call it like the Matrix or, different words. But, this is a very physical world that we live in, but there's a lot that we don't see that can help shape our reality. So just being aware of that, it's kind of like just understanding the magic that's out there. Is really powerful because it's there. You can feel it. I don't know about you, but I feel it in 2020. The energy is off the wall this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Go ahead.
No, there's just a shift. It's a shift. It's a new decade. It's a new era. There's a huge energy shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just in natural conversation, you've given a lot of really good advice and inspiration of different things that people can do maybe when they're traveling or otherwise to really make the world a better place. I'm wondering if there are any lessons that you would like to share that you've learned recently, or anything that you just kind of feel on your heart that you're supposed to say today, or that you haven't said so far in our discussion that you would like to impart onto our audience.
Yeah. Maybe it's something that I'm working on right now. Like I haven't mastered it yet.
Sure.
But I have a big vision and a big goal to help all the animals and the planet, because we don't have a whole lot of time if we keep going the way we're going. And it makes me angry and emotional. And so that's like the big goal, and it's very overwhelming. But tracing it back to what I can do in my day-to-day is very important, because we feel so overwhelmed and so hopeless when we see like Australia just burning to the ground, we're losing all of these species and around the planet. And actually I went to Alaska last year with a friend, and I was so emotional because you could see the glaciers, how much they've retreated. And I cried, and she's like, "What's wrong? Isn't it beautiful?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's beautiful, but like some people might not ever be able to see this. Like these glaciers are disappearing. You could actually see global warming's effect in person, because you could see the lines where the glaciers were, I think like even 20 years ago, and it's moved miles, like it's melted miles. So imagine in the big scheme of things what that's doing. So I do get very emotional and overwhelmed with all of this, as I think a lot of people do, and then they're just like, "Oh well, it's hopeless, like we're just gonna burn to the ground." But no, like taking that power back and knowing that we are all very, very powerful beings, and together, like that's how we shape the world. That's how we can destroy it together. We can save it together.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but tracing it back, and this is something I need to work on, that I found in my travels recently too. It's that I get very passionate and moved about the big picture, but I need to think about what I can be doing in my day-to-day to make myself happy and joyful and at peace, so that I can take care of others. So self-care is like, you know, trending. It's a, you know, it's a hot topic these days, but it's more than just like the bubble bath and, you know, wine with girlfriends. Like it's really like really taking care of yourself, whether it's like not even just eating right, but it's like putting things on your skin that is organic and natural, and like making your own products, because a lot of things that we put on our skin, especially as women, have all of these hormone disruptors, and it messes with your endocrine system, and there's just so much crap in our world right now, that we really need to be paying attention to what we put into our system, like on our skin, what we're eating, what we're consuming, what we're listening to, what we're watching, because it all affects our mental health. So taking care of yourself, your mind, your body, and your spirit, whether it's yoga, meditation, so that you can be the best that you can be, to then help people around the world and the planet.
I'm so glad that you made that kind of shift, because I think that both extremes, which, I mean, the world has, of course, the extremes, and then everything in between, have come up in our conversation. So from extremely distressing, sad, depressing things like Australia burning, the ice caps melting, what happened with your friend, what happened with your sister, but as well as some of the really opposite extreme where, you know, joyful traveling, helping other people, taking, like you said, back that control and power and what you can do in a day-to-day. So that kind of leads me to like my final question, I guess, considering all of those things, is I always like to ask people, if Kelly at 8 years old had a crystal ball, maybe on that long bus ride to or from school or something, and you could see the journey of moving to California, moving to Vancouver, all of the traveling you've done. And then I know right before we chatted, you said you just secured a new place to live in LA. So you have that to look forward to, which I know can be super stressful for.
Oh, it's so stressful. There's so many scams here, girl.
I know.
I don't know anyone finds a place to live.
Oh, it's rough. But with all of that in mind, if little you could see where you are now, as well as the foreseeable future, you know, God willing, universe willing, that it goes well as you expect, on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little you be to see where you are now?
I love that it's 11. It's not even 10.
I'm not into even round numbers.
No, 11, that's angel numbers right there. A scale of 1 to 11. I don't think should be able to comprehend what is happening, because it's not, anything. Like, the goal has always been to be in movies. I don't know why, but ever since a young age, like, I think because there wasn't much to do on the farm except for ride horses and dirt bikes. So I would watch movies and just be like, I want to be in that one day. Like, it just showed me that there's a whole nother world out there. So it has always been the goal, but I don't think the travels and the philanthropy and living in different cities and countries ever would have crossed my mind. So I'd be at a solid 10. I'll be at an 11 when I win my Oscar. Then that's when I'm at 11. So right now, 10.
I'll celebrate with you then.
Yes.
And I know I said that it was the last question, but I forgot. Usually I ask earlier, where can we find you and your foundation or nonprofit online, like your social media links, your website links? I'd love for everyone to hear where to find that. And I'll put that and the book recommendations all in the show notes so people
Yay! And there's one other book too that I wanted to recommend. It's called Stop Worrying and Start Living. Because I do that too much. I worry a lot. And I know a lot of people do in this day and age. It's like, it just makes you wonder, like, we were given such a beautiful planet. Why do we just ruin our own lives by worrying and stressing all the time? Like, it's such a beautiful place, but I'm guilty of it too. Like, I really do. And I'm working on it. Like, lately I haven't been worried or stressed because I'm just like, 2020 is like abundance and good vibes all around.
Love it.
But
keep them going.
Yeah, but but Stop Worrying and Start Living. And it was by the author. And this is a book from like I want to say the 40s. Like the book, a friend gave it to me in Uganda, and it was like there was no cover. So you couldn't judge that book by its cover because there was none. It was just like all ripped up. And yeah, it's the same author of How to Make Friends and Influence People is a really
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same author, and that was a really great book too. So yes, apart from that, put down Give Backpackers. So Give Backpackers is the nonprofit that Lindsay started. Okay. And I took it to 501c3 last year, thanks to some really generous donors. So now it's like tax exempt status, like we are legit. So that's givebackpackers.org. Okay. And Give Backpackers on Instagram. And then I am the only Kelly Pantaleoni in the world. Very cool. You just look that up on Instagram and put a .com at the end, and that's me.
Perfect. Well, that makes it easy. And like I said, I'll put that in the show notes with all the book recommendations. And I just realized it wasn't Napoleon Hill. He was Think and Grow Rich. It's Dale Carnegie.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm like,
it sounded like a very smart man. But yeah, Dale Carnegie, you're right. You're a smart woman.
I think those are both like OG personal development authors from, almost 100 years ago. So I got them confused for a second.
Yeah, and it's this wisdom that's just timeless.
Absolutely.
And it's funny reading it now. It's like, damn, what did they have to worry about back then? Like now, although it's funny because when you actually put it into perspective, like people have been fighting wars and like, like this has been serious. Now, what are we worrying about? Like stress and anxiety because of social media. Right. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in. That's why I made the movie last year about how mental health is affecting us with anxiety, depression, and suicide. Because a lot of these apps and the internet in general just makes us feel very inadequate. And very small, and because we're always comparing ourselves, so it's really finding that balance. Because life is beautiful. We just need to step outside and see what nature has given us. Absolutely. And stop, trying to like just buy more to make ourselves happy. Right.
And is that movie on your website, or can we find it via your website or social channels, or?
So if you look up 40 seconds on Instagram, you can start following us. Okay. We're in editing right now, so we should have a final draft within the next couple months because we're submitting to festivals. I really want to get it in the Cannes Film Festival, so that's my dream. That's my goal. Love it. And so it's going to have a big mental health campaign behind it. We partnered up with Coast Mental Health in Canada, and I'm trying to target Mental Health America because it's not just a movie, it's a movement. And we really want it to have a big social media campaign behind it to use social media for good. And the name 40 seconds comes from the stat that every 40 seconds somebody commits suicide.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Every 40 seconds. And we want to change that. Because if we don't, they're predicting that it'll be every 20 seconds somebody's going to be committing suicide. So in every 40 seconds, if somebody's committing suicide, we want to be able to change that 40 seconds, and we want people to be shooting a video of themselves saying in 40 seconds why they think life is worth living. So we want that to be a bit of a viral campaign. We want to have different activations at festivals around the world, where we can have maybe like a video booth, and then eventually we'll put it online, and we'll have online screenings and online forums, because we really want to have mental health advocates and start these conversations with professionals in panels and online. So when it's triggering for certain people, or makes them really like tap into their own mental health, then we have somebody to answer questions for them. Sure. So 40 seconds. Actually, I think the Instagram is 40 seconds movie.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that's in the show notes also, so people can find that easily. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for taking this time to chat with me and share what you're doing. And thank you so much for what you're doing in the world. I can't even imagine, with so many different causes that you've done things for, and that I'm sure you will, the impact that you're having all over the world. It has to be immense. And that's just really cool.
Thank you. I hope so. And I think that's a problem that a lot of us who get into philanthropy face. It's like, are we really making a difference? Like, or are we just feeling good about ourselves? But I would like to think that we are. And I know that we are. I get updates from Angel all the time, like sending us pictures of clothes that they're sewing or jewelry that they're making and kids that are in school now. So yeah, it's very fulfilling work. Thank you. That's
awesome.
Definitely what I'm here for.
I love it. Very cool. I really hope you enjoyed her story. I think it's so inspiring and super magical what people can do when they take the time to learn about different things, and then to even take, like she mentioned, small activities, actions during your daily life that make a difference, as well as the larger, more planned out big event type things like the trips that she's taken and so on. I think she has just really cool ideas, and I can't wait to see them come to fruition. Now, don't forget to head to boldmovespodcast.com. That's where you'll find those show notes where they have links to Kelly's site, links to all those books she recommended, links to the Give Backpackers website. Everything you need will be at those show notes. So I really appreciate you heading there to get any more information that you want and to connect with Kelly. Also, I would love it if you shared this with anyone who you think would find it valuable in some way, whether it is individually, specifically to one person, or sharing it on social media to your whole friends, family, following, and so on. I'd also love it if you subscribed so that you don't miss an episode, including a sweet challenge coming this Friday from Kelly. And I would love it if you left great reviews on Apple Podcasts and anywhere else that you're allowed to leave reviews. I am hoping that this podcast gets to as many people as possible and inspires them to make changes. And the best way to do that is A, by having it be shared to a lot of people, and then B, taking advantage of that Apple algorithm where if they see people are leaving reviews and they're listening, they might suggest it as a podcast that Apple thinks you might like. So I would really appreciate that and love that. I also want to take 2 seconds to give a little plug for my 2 books. One of them is Best Face Forward, so if you've ever wanted to get better at doing your own makeup, that book is for you. And then the other one is called 2020 Vision. It was kind of meant to be a New Year's guide, but you can absolutely do it for any time of the year because we should always be working toward our goals. It's a goal setting and goal attainment guide that I think you'll find very helpful. And they're both everywhere you can get books. So Kindle, my website, Apple Books, they're all over the place. You'll find them. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.